Wednesday night, June 4th, 6:40 p.m. Mountain Time. We're here with none other than Justin Young. Justin, it's been forever since you've been on the podcast. Pumped to have you back on.
Yeah, we only had a Sweet 16 run in between the last time I was on, so no big deal, boys. But I'm glad to be back with you guys.
Talk to us about that. The whole season, we talked to you back in December. Look, we had some non-con games. We didn't really know what this team was about at that time. Then you go on this roller coaster ride this season with this basketball team. Your first year part of a D1 basketball team like this. Talk about your time being with this team and the ups and downs of it all, going through a Sweet 16 run.
I was just talking to Chris Burgess about this the other day, and I said, when I look back now, like it was the best party I've ever been to, where everyone, what made it so fun and felt like that is because you literally enjoyed everybody that was part of the process, whether it was on the team, whether it was our support staff, whether it was the managers. Like we even had like the coolest bus driver, right? Like in Newark, like everyone that like touched the experience was like somebody that you really enjoyed being around, which really I think fueled the success of our team because everybody really enjoyed going to work every day and it really didn't feel like work. I know it's so cliche, but it really didn't. I mean, it really felt like the best movie you've really watched, right? Like it was so exciting and that run felt appropriate for the type of personality of our team. It really did. And it was really satisfying, man. It was the most satisfying team I've been a part of. That's for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of, like Carter said, ups and downs, also a lot of changes, it felt like, to some lineups, guys getting new minutes.
Yeah.
That's a huge credit to your brother, Kevin, obviously, for figuring out who to play at the right moments and obviously led to a great season, but also credit to you and your staff recruiting the right guys for this team. And so my question is, what did you see when you were recruiting them that led to that success? And obviously the lineups, like I said, look different in November than they did at the end of March.
Yeah, so I think like let's use Mawid Mag for an example, right? Like his experience was like a two-part play, right? And the first act was very nondescript. The second part was huge. And if we didn't have the success of Mawid, but also like a credit to Brandon Dunstan of understanding like who Mawid is and like what he's made of and what the fibers of his personality really are, I think allowed us to like understand like, okay, he's going to be okay. Obviously, as a competitor, you like you want to be on the floor 41 minutes a game, right? Like you want to be out there as much as possible. But I think it was a credit to like Brandon of like really understanding like this is what this guy's all about. Like his personality will be fine. He'll understand the ebbs and flows of it. He's a grown man. So I think that has a lot to do with like our evaluation of guys, of them, like their decision making, their countenance. I mean, you're really doing some like real like personality deep dives and motivations. Like there's some real psychology to it. So I think for all the guys that we got, even, you know, like a couple of weeks behind everybody last year, I think that all kind of, for the most part, paid dividends for what we were able to get out of those players. And then now we transferred over to this next class, which I think you'll really see that even more next year.
Yeah, going into this next class, the Sweet 16 ends, lose to Alabama, and then you go right into the portal stuff and recruiting and everything. I'm more curious, and I think a lot of fans are curious, like, what's your day-to-day like when it's portal time? Like, how many hours are you working? How often are you on the phone? Like, what's it like for you?
The portal is, I've said this a number of times. I said it's like the NBA draft that has 12 rounds and it's every day for 30 days. Like the quickness, right? Like if you've ever done a fantasy football draft, right? Like you're in the 7th round, you're like, man, I got this sleeper tight end that I'm going to take. And then the pick right before they take that sleeper tight end. You're like, ah, crap, what do I do? Like that's how the portal kind of feels sometimes, is like that sort of like instant, like, all right, I got to be ready to go. If that guy goes off the board, because the portal, I mean, you've got guys making decisions like within 72 hours of going into the portal. And so it felt that way. A lot of times you've got to not have just a plan B, but a C all the way to Z probably on some positions. And then it also depends too, where not everybody goes out of the starting block at the same time. Right. And so like, that's the other hard part where you just wait. And, you know, like we were involved with some other point guards and then Rob Wright became available. Well, guess what? Rob instantly moved ahead at the top of the line because, you know, we knew what he was like because we saw him do it at Provo. We're like, this guy is a monster. And yeah, if he's in the portal, heck yeah, we want to recruit that guy. We believe in that guy. So I mean that was a big part of the portal, just being ready and being prepared. And that for me, it was like, I felt great because we were going to be prepared no matter what. Like we spent the entire season getting prepared and being prepared for these types of instances. So I was really happy with how it went. But yeah, it is a whirlwind for sure. And there's a lot of instant stuff that you've got to really be ready for. A lot of film, a lot of phone calls, a lot of late night action. So yeah, it's as crazy as you would imagine it is. Yeah.
So I had a little birdie told me, going back to the fantasy football thing, little birdie told me before this episode that you're the quote unquote self-proclaimed best GM in a fantasy football league.
Well, that is accurate. So your sources are spot on. I am the GM of the year, multiple time GM of the year. I've also given that award to myself.
You can't be GM of the year. How many rings we talking here? How many years? How many rings?
Listen, the GM's job is not to coach the team. The GM's job is to build the team.
So I feel like we're dodging a question here, man.
I answered your question.
I don't think you answered my question.
Justin,
I need a straight answer, Your Honor.
We heard it was 12 years in this league. How many rings do you have?
I don't have any. I have no rings.
0.
I have no rings. Yeah.
So you're Sam Presti. You're sitting here, maybe this next year you get one. Sam Presti's finally going to get one. But for years and years, Sam Presti's this great GM, but doesn't have that ring right there. Is that what you're saying? Sam
Presti still has the same job that a lot of people don't have the same job year after year after year. So you know what? You guys sound like you're in my league, is what you two guys sound like.
How many people have gotten fired from their GM jobs in this league?
A lot of people. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm staying strong. Yeah, I'm staying strong. If I'd have known this is part of the content, guys, I would have not agreed to this. So
this is a gotcha podcast. Yeah, we really
this was a gotcha. This is a very Goodman type of, you guys are definitely from the Goodman School of podcasting.
It just, all the thing that matters, again, we'll spin this. We can make this good, Justin. He doesn't coach the team, but he puts the best talent out on the field. He's got the most points out there before the games start. The predictions of ESPN and all that, whatever league you use, they love his roster. But it's not, you don't control the passes and the runs. Speaking of potential here, you have an incredible recruiting class coming in, both in high school, obviously headlined by AJ, and then in the transfer portal as well. My last question about last season's team as an ode to them, and then we can kind of move on. How much did the success, especially late last season, affect the recruiting pitch to players this year and their desire to come play in Provo?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think it's twofold. I think one, the player development piece, I think was really something that, we really shared that with people, particularly with Mawit, even with Richie, right? Like where they started to where they finished. Mawit, I think, is a good example of helping the player we put players in better positions for them to be successful. Where Richie, I mean, obviously all of our guys, there's a real credit to them because they had the work ethic to go out there and do it, and the desire. So like that paired with the player development that our staff does such a great job with, made those conversations really good. And I think people too saw that run. And I think that really caught momentum where more people picked up the phone right away. Oh, it's BYU. And they called you back or they text you back like that. That certainly kind of grew some legs. But I feel like, honestly, like that was happening probably a little bit before people realized like we were having a lot of success on really kind of those connectors. But definitely it's a lot easier to have a story with, to use Kevin's phrase, like a real proof of concept, to really like, okay, well, we knew what we wanted to go do. Now we've got like real proof of like how it works. And I think that's the piece of it too, that was easier to like, the players got it, obviously the agents, the people that really help, like that situation, once people start to see it now. I said it, back in whenever we talked last time, like come and see it. More people have, and they're like, okay, yeah, cool. You're really about that life, which has been a little bit easier to, you don't have to sell it as much because it's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to when you mentioned Rob Wright as well, you say, when he gets in the portal, it's like, all right, let's act fast. Let's get him. How quickly, I mean, obviously it was quick, but I mean, immediately is it just, hey, we have to go get this guy no matter what at that point?
Yeah, because at the time, when you think about the point guards that were out there, when he entered the portal, he was instantly the top point guard. And I think that he was the top point guard regardless of entry point personally for the way that we play, right? For the way that we play. And obviously we saw him do what he did against us. I'll never forget it. Like, man, and at the time it was just like you respect the player. I think we even talked about this, maybe Carter, even after the game. Like that was a
Yep.
game where Rob was awesome. VJ Edgecombe was awesome. Cannon Catchings was flawless. Jaeger was great. Like all the freshmen, we had a ton of NBA people there. And I think there was this, man, like what Rob Wright did down the stretch to push that game to overtime as a true freshman, facing the rock from floor to ceiling of madness. The guy was like unflappable. And so like that memory stays with you. And then when he hits the portal after you kind of like, you hear some whispers like, hey, he's gonna go in the portal, and you really start to do a deep dive. And then listen, there's no secret who he's played with, right? Like this year he's played with the top 5 pick in VJ Edgecombe. Obviously in high school, he's part of maybe one of the top 3 to 5 greatest high school teams ever with Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen and McNeely. I mean, you go down the list of that team, Asa Newell, like tremendous team. Rob Wright knows how to be like the rhythm the guitar player. He knows how to be George Harrison to John Lennon and Paul McCartney. You know what I mean? Like he knows how to play the right notes with those types of people. And so I think that obviously was attractive. And then, it's just relationships too. Like we've had some deep-seated relationships there that made it work. But no, I mean, there couldn't have been a better player, honestly, in the portal at that very necessary position for our success. When he hit the portal, it was a no-brainer, theoretically push the chips all in and go, okay, this is what we believe and this is what we want to go do.
Yeah, you talk about the Baylor game. Carter and I talked about it live after the game. We saw with our own eyes that it was one of the best college games I've seen in person.
I couldn't agree more, man. It was an awesome game.
The level of play, the shot making at the
Yeah.
end from both sides, like you said, VJ and Rob were incredible. And I think we offhandedly, Carter, were like, oh, imagine if he entered the portal, what it would do for this BYU team. And then all of a sudden it becomes reality. And then you guys get steam. And then it's all of a sudden like, oh, I think he's coming to BYU.
Yeah.
It was pretty surreal because you've now built this culture in an insanely short amount of time where you're now attracting talent that BYU's just never seen before. And that's just a fact. And they've had awesome teams, awesome people behind those teams. But what do you think has changed that has allowed guys like Rob Wright, who is at this level, played with the players he's at, the programs he's at, enters the portal, and not soon after is on the phone with you, is taking visits and is deciding, yeah, I want to come play basketball here?
That's a loaded answer. I mean, I think it's a perfect storm of a lot of things happening at the same time. We've talked about it before. Kevin coming from the NBA to college basketball, like at the time that he came, right? Rules changing, your ability to go out there and proactively think about how do you build a roster different than what it was even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think the Big 12 has a lot to do with it. I really do. Like the competition level, who you're playing every night, the platform that the Big 12 is. And then honestly, like just the belief system too, I think from top to bottom, like, I mean, every person on our staff has some sort of level of expertise that really caters to a piece of that, of someone's, what they're looking for in the recruiting process. Like we can service that, right? Like, what are you all about? What's important to you? Strength and nutrition? Sure. We got you. The psychological piece, we got you. You want to be involved with marketing, like when you're done playing, we got you. Like media create, like whatever it is. Like we've got a lot of experts on our staff that I think can really connect that. And on top of that, when you're around our guys, they're just good people. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing forced. Like you just like, man, I like that guy. That guy's a good dude. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. But I mean, Kevin's vision really, the minute he stood there at the Marriott Center at his opening press conference, and I think some people are like, okay, cool, man, here's a new guy really giving us the rah-rah. And like, I think people now get it. Like when Kevin says it, he's about it. You know what I mean? He just doesn't say stuff to say stuff, to like raise some funding. Like he's about it, and he's competitive and driven to get to that. And that trickles down to all of us.
I love it. Let's talk about some of these other players in the portal that are coming to BYU for next season. Guy you wanted to talk about, very excited to talk about, Canard Davis. Lay it on us.
Yeah, Moo's huge, man. Moo Davis is a real important piece to what we're all about. 6'6", 215, played at an unbelievable high school, Bashan High School in St. Louis, three-time state champ. Guys that have played at Southern Illinois have done a really good job of leveling up. And then he can shoot it and he can guard and he's physical. I mean, like look at our games where we didn't have success last year. There was a commonality to it where we needed to have a real physical piece to that game and the athleticism. And 6'6", 215, how he came up through basketball, where he came up through basketball. Vashon, to me, is a program that is top 5 in the country when it comes to tough guys, like absolute tough guys. And for us to compete at the level we want to compete against, and we're starting to see like our schedule starting to slowly get unveiled, like we're in that Mike Tyson era where it's like, it's the golden era of what Tyson was fighting. We can't just show up with some featherweights. We got to come in there with some heavyweights, and we need guys like Canard Davis to come in there and be like a perfect balance to what we have with AJ and Richie and Kaba, all those other guys that we have in that style of play. So I thought we really had a very specific type of player that we wanted to go after for that position. And it's funny. I think a point guard is very clearly defined in Kevin's style play, and I think our 5 is pretty clearly defined. But the traditional 2, 3, and 4, just erase that. Just put dude. Like we just need dudes. And I think Canard is a dude. I think Richie is a dude. Obviously, AJ is a dude. A lot of other guys on our team are just dudes, where they're interchangeable. The way that we switch, the way that we attack. I mean, you kind of saw that iteration of that last year. And I think this year we really want to go after, but you had to be able to stop a guy and hit a shot. And it doesn't hurt that you're a physical, freak like Canard is. So I think Moo's probably also the first Moo in school history as well. So I like that element to it as well.
Can you enlighten us on that nickname?
I have no enlightenment to give. I need to get enlightened on that as well. I don't know.
But it's just Moose. Moo.
Moo. No,
what we're gonna call him?
Moose is probably, I want to find another guy that's named Moose, but Moo is where we're at right now.
Moo. All right. We'll keep that in mind. Speaking of other dudes, the first guy landed as far as transfers go, Dominic Diamande, another guy who's very long, very athletic. You tell us about him.
So Dominique is one of my favorite stories. We call him French Dom. So French Dom was on our radar right out of the gate. So I had a good friend of mine that's super dialed in France, and he hit me up right after coming out of the job and was like, hey, I got this guy, Dominique Diamande, you guys were going to want to look at. So we did. We looked at him hard last year. We tried. Just had a hard time getting the timeline. And so, he joined Washington, very similar to what Hadim joined with us, right, and Boop at Washington. There's some just getting him into school was a process. That happens a lot for international guys. And so he goes to Washington. And we're like, okay, I mean, that, we had our roster was full, kind of, no harm, no foul. But we knew about Dominique very early in the process, evaluated him very hard. We really, really liked him. When I saw his film for the first time, I was like, I've seen a lot of film over the years. His film, I was like, holy crap, like, who's this guy? Right. And so we dove into it. And then there was a couple of times early in his development where some people were talking about as a potential second round pick, level prospect. Obviously got the length. You've seen the athleticism already now in some clips that our team's put out. But I think he's a super high ceiling guy, very athletic, a mismatch problem. Still, I think will benefit greatly from our development. And he's already, kind of absorbed a lot of that already this summer and talking to a lot of our coaches and our director of player development, Jordan Brady. And he's a guy that I'm very interested in seeing where his starting point is to where it is now. But we've known about him. We've been very on him for a long time. And so when he, the portal from Washington, we jumped back in there because we knew in order to get into college and to go through a semester of college, he kind of was able to work through some of the things that kind of allowed us that kind of slowed us down to be able to get him. So when he came, I was like, dude, we got to get this guy right away. We got that done really quick. I love the guy. I think he's super exciting. And, it's funny. We got many guys on our team that's probably the most athletic guy that's ever played BYU basketball, all on the same team. But I think there's going to be a couple moments this year where he was like, there were moments last year out with Kayla, you're like, holy crap. I think French Dom's going to have a couple of those this year as well.
French Dom has to meet Big Dom at some point this season.
Nah, Big Dom. Listen,
not a Big Dom guy.
Not a Big Dom guy, man.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So wait, who's your NFL team?
Well, we grew up in Dallas, so
Yeah.
by blood, I have to be a Cowboys guy with all the suffering that comes with it.
So do you believe in Dak?
Man, guys, this football conversation, you
I
just
mean, that's a no. That's a no.
That's a no. Yeah, all
That's
right.
a no.
We know how this works. Chase gives me political answers all the time. We can move on. We can
Yeah.
talk about another great player
Yeah.
on this team.
I mean, you grew up in Panthers country, bro. Like, you don't know what joy looks like, so.
I got 1 year of joy. I had my moment in the sun. Look, man, at least I show my loyalty, man.
That's true.
My wife never has to worry about that. She's like, "You've been a Panthers fan your whole life and a Hornets fan? We're fine."
If you don't have a son whose middle name is Delhomme, then you ain't a real fan, bro.
Delhomme?
Yeah.
Nah, my kid's gonna be Luke Kuechly Bond. We'll go
Big
there.
Bob.
All right. That's all right. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm a Luke Kuechly guy. But anyhow, talking about some more players. Nate Pickens, kind of a later add in the portal. Backup combo guard coming off the bench, it seems like, from UC Riverside. Tell us about him and what you like about him.
I said it last time I was on the show, like, we have a certain type of player. We love long players and length. And then that's the thing with him. With Pickens, he's got great length. He's got great versatility. He's interchangeable. Defensively, we really like what he can be. We really like the improvement that he's done on his shot. I think he's a really important piece, kind of like what we saw from Trey Stewart, right? Like an elevated version of that. As we saw as the season got older, that type of player really had a lot of value in the conference. Where I think Pickens can be that guy. Brandon Dunson's done a really good job. Knew him from the Phoenix area. Obviously, I was in Phoenix, and I scouted Nate when he was at Dream City Christian, and there's some history there. Great kid, like fits our culture. A really important piece, big rotation piece to what we're all about. Obviously, we played against him as well. There's a common theme, unintentionally for some of our guys that we sign out of the portal. But it does help though, like to see them in action against our guys, and like. I do think there's a lot of value to that. I think any school would probably say the same thing. Like if you have a chance to see them in person, play against them, know their tendencies in real-time action, I don't think that hurts. But comes from a great program, very well coached in college, very, very well coached in college, and a great base. And I think will fit in perfectly for the versatility for what we need him to be. If we need him to go guard, an elite point guard, go do that. If he needs to. You guys have me still?
Yeah,
you're good. It should be good.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The universe put me on pause there, like I was saying something wrong. It might have been the ghost of Dak Prescott was getting into the technology here. But no, I think Pickens is going to be really good, just like Trey was down the stretch, where whatever we needed Trey to go do, he did it, and didn't bat an eye about it. And I think there's a value very similar with Pickens, that I'm really excited about him and his value across. The 1, 2, 3, not in that order, but like can do a lot of things, a lot of different places. Versatility and length, 3-point shooting and defense. There's a common theme with all of our guys that we got out of the portal.
Yeah, no, last but not least, we got Tyler Mruss coming in as the tall shooter. Tell us about Tyler.
Yeah, so it's funny. I ran this camp back in 2020, actually at the Carl Malone training facility in Lehigh. And it was awesome camp, actually. Like we had some pretty high level guys. We had a lot of guys from the West, and Tyler was one of those guys. Came down from Seattle and graded out, believe it or not, numbers wise, more athletic than Keba. True story. The numbers said. Me and Jordan Brady. Jordan was my camp director for this, so it's kind of funny. Like there's a lot of tie-ins there for this like one hit wonder camp that we ran in Utah. Tyler was there. Obviously, he goes to Idaho, really proves himself as a really important, versatile shooter, can really stretch the floor. Really like the value that we get out of him. Again, commonality for what we're looking for, very specific role. That shooting had to be there. The guy is perfect for Provo. He's perfect for our locker room. There's a leadership quality to him that I really, really like a lot. He's the adult in the room a lot of times. I think he's all in with what we're about. Understands like what the value is going to be. I'm really excited to see the battles between him and Brody Kozlowski when it comes to like shooting the ball, rebounding. Like those two guys competing against each other, I think are going to make each other better because they're both being asked to do real similar things. So I think collectively those two guys are going to make each other better. I'm really excited to see those guys compete and then really like put that on the floor once we get into the season, because like that role, when you have the type of team that we have, you need a guy like that to really come off the bench and even like in different opportunities, different matchups be really important, whether it's hitting a shot, getting a tough offensive rebound, making a bingo play for us. And so like those are guys that are really important. And I think Tyler's going to fit us really perfectly for what we need him to be.
So when you're in that recruiting process with a guy like Tyler Murruss or even Nate Pickens, how tough is it to say, hey, I know you could probably go start at a lower level school somewhere else, but are you okay accepting a role coming off the bench here? How do guys respond to that?
We're right out of the gate. I mean, we're pretty clear. Like we got to really put it out there. We don't want to give any false hope. We want to be really transparent. I mean, that's how Kevin is, right? Like there's not a lot of Easter eggs in conversation with him. You know what I mean? Like he's right to it. This is what we're all about, and we are. And I think with Tyler, like he's excited because he knows what's on the line. He knows what we're aiming to go do. And I think we needed guys that really like Dudson and I talked about this all the time. Like, what's the guy's buy-in value? Is he a buy-in guy? Is he buying into like what this could be all about? We've talked about that nonstop. And so like the buy-in for every guy that we signed, it's there. And like there are some guys that were maybe more talented, right? There may be some guys that maybe have, a 3-point shoot. 3% difference is actually a big difference for a lot of these high-level shooters. But they didn't want to, they weren't buy, not to say that it was wrong, but they didn't buy into like what we needed that player to be. You know what I mean? And so like that buy-in was a huge piece to like all of our guys that really at the end of the day was kind of a separating factor for if you had 3 guys on the board that were all equated the same value, like that buy-in, we rated a lot on that as well. So I mean that's a huge piece right out of the gate for sure.
So that wraps up the transfers, and obviously we've talked in length about AJ. We haven't talked too much about Xavier. I just want your thoughts on it real quick from the clips that we've seen. Again, just clips, but really
Well,
shows his value to the team. Going up against Cabo in that competition, he looks so long. It looks like he can just rebound like a mother and just put every shot back in the hoop. Tell us a little bit about Xavier before we move on from this class.
I think I always said that he was the most unique guy in that class because of the length. And we knew that there is a long runway for development. I mean, 3 years ago to where he is now is a whole different type of player. Like a lot of young guys, I mean, think about it. Like you're learning, how to move within your body type at that age. And like, you're just still trying to figure that out, and like you always hear like that cliche, you can't run and shoot gun at the same time. Well, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. And so like for Xavier, that's why I'm really glad that him and AJ were there early and enrolled early to be able to get there and practice and to get that in there. The thing that I've always liked about Xavier is that he was going to do the work. He was always going to do the work, that there's a total buy-in with him. There's a belief system in him that says these guys are going to help me get to the goals that I want to go do. And I think he's really bought into that. He's putting in the effort that matches the belief that we have in him. And at that age, at this stage of where they're at in like, year 0 that he's in, that's all that you really want, is you want somebody to be able to lay the foundation. So he's doing everything that he needs to do right now to be in the right process. And we'll see how that plays out. I mean, we still haven't had our whole team together at the same time, at the same place ever. So like, there's still a lot that needs to kind of go into it. And I think also to mention, I think we have to talk about Hadim and Boop in the same category. Like he's been really good as far as the effort, the physicality of it. And I think he's helping Xavier get better and vice versa. Right. And like, they had some history together too, that you back at Utah Prep where, well, I guess they passed each other in the night, now that I say that. But nevertheless, like they, because Xavier came a little bit later, Hadim left, I think of the semester where joined us in January. But Hadim's been great too. And like, there's some opportunities for Hadim as well. We got a lot of interchangeable parts. And the effort, that's the part that I really have been excited about and talking to the coaches. Like the effort across the board has been awesome. And it doesn't feel like it's, May or when they're, in June. You don't hear a lot of noise coming out of, year 0 workouts. So
One of my last questions is, and we'll get you out of here soon, is kind of talking about the difference between last year and this year's recruiting. You mentioned how you had to start a few weeks late last year when Kevin gets the job, and you're kind of running behind a little bit. How much more of an advantage was it being able to jump right in right away?
it was huge, man. It was everything. And we were prepared. You know what I mean? And I believe that. Like if you're prepared, you're not, you're not gonna fail because you kind of know you've done all the hard work. And I think that's a credit to our whole staff. Like our staff's amazing. Like we're so connected on every category that it just doesn't take us very long to get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean? And like, there's a real checks and balances to it where the type of people that we want to bring in this program, like we're very aware of that. And we're very aware of the spotlight that comes with the type of team that I think that we built. And like, we're playing, I mean, Madison Square Garden and TD Garden in Vegas and Orlando and the Big 12 tournament. And there's a couple other things that we're excited about, And so it's like, man, like we've got to be able to have guys that needed a requisite runway to figure out, are they about what we're about at BYU because of the type of platform and stage that we're about to go forward on. And I feel like that runway definitely allowed us to get to that. And man, I couldn't be happier. I mean, I really think there's an excitement level with each guy individually. And I'm excited for all of our guys to get together and really see what kind of music we can play at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm curious. We talked about just barely 7 or 8 guys that are all newcomers. You combine that with the studs that are returning
Yeah.
for this BYU team. Kevin took an interesting approach and played a pretty deep bench this season. It was a big storyline for BYU because
Yeah.
there was so much talent. You just felt like you trusted a lot of guys on the team to get that done. Look at the roster this season. I mean, we just spent 20 minutes gushing about every dude. How do you think it's going to be balancing playing time with all the talent on this roster?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Again, that's why I'm the GM of the year in the fantasy football league, guys.
That's right.
I just bring the good players to the table and let them figure that out. But I think that leads to great practices and great competition. Great competition, yields good opportunities. And I think we're prepared for the depth. I mean, I think that depth really was a huge part of our success last year. And knock on wood, we were healthy for the most part across the board. We didn't really face anything too catastrophic. And so I think that we're prepared for that. And again, the buy-in part, that's what the buy-in really mattered. We needed guys that bought in where, like I went to a baseball game the other day and I sat right behind the bullpen. And I was like, man, what a great gig to be a bullpen pitcher, like a middle reliever. Like these guys are making pretty good money. They pitch like every 5 days, okay, or like a relief pitcher, right? I'm like, pretty sweet gig. But man, when it matters for those guys, it matters. You know what I mean? Like, and I think basketball to a degree is really similar. Like sometimes you're just a middle relief pitcher, but if it goes right and you do it well, it really matters in the bottom line. You know what I mean? Like it matters to close out, get those 3 outs in the 7th inning and keep them off the bases. Like that matters. So I do think that there's some long play stuff there with our guys that, again, like Mawit, like his number and his usage was 2 different stories in the season. Trey Stewart, same thing. And so like it just depends. And I think the competition will drive a lot out of it. But luckily we have a lot of mature guys that understand what's at stake. And I think we all know what our goals are going to be. And I think that's important to keep that in the front of mind, like what we're trying to do and what do we got to do to get there?
I know you got to run soon, but I feel like you're itching a little to talk about baseball. I see you tweeting about the Braves and everything. How are you feeling about the Braves this year?
Yeah, I mean, I like those bats to come alive, man. I would. I'd like some bat. I'm a big baseball guy. Burge and I are big baseball guys. We talk about it a lot. Shout out to my guy Moo Davis, big Cardinals guy. So that part I'm excited about because we got too many Dodgers people in our locker room that I'm not super excited about talking about the Dodgers all the time. But yeah, dude, I'm a big baseball guy. Yeah, you guys took me away from the Braves. I think we're in a rain delay, so I was excited to maybe get the start of that game after this podcast is over.
You think, again, this is totally off topic. You think the Pacers have a shot? Any shot at all against OKC?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, Hallie's playing great. I mean, we're big TJ McConnell fans in the Young family because he played for Kevin in Philadelphia. So it'd be cool to see Teach get some run there. And he's like such an unbelievable competitor. But I don't know, I mean, OKC's great. They're great. They're an awesome team. It's it's interesting, guys. Like you kind of know when a team's about like every single guy. Like talk to all of our freshmen. They all talk like SGA is in like the top 5 conversation for any young basketball player right now. Like on the same like it was with Curry 10 years ago. SGA comes up with almost every young guy. Like, who do you watch? Oh, man, I love SGA. I want to play like SGA, which is so crazy to hear. Like, I remember watching, I got a funny story about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So when I was living in Atlanta, he played at this little tiny prep school in Chattanooga, Hamilton Heights, and they played like some really random teams that I remember going to watch. there's a gym in Marietta, Georgia that I literally like would go scout. I've got big feet. Okay. I got like size 14s. Half of my foot was on the floor, like just where I sat, that I had to like turn sideways half the game so they could run by, but I had to go watch. And like I used to joke all the time, like, just think about where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander came from. And then like the floor is like all buckled, because you know how it is, Carter, like down the south, like humidity, like old gyms, they don't fix it. The humidity buckles all the wood. And so like you couldn't dribble in like one part of the floor. So like Gilgeous-Alexander was like always on the left side of the floor, because if you did, you'd go over there. You're like climbing the Himalayas to get to the basket. Like, it was such a disaster. But I'm like, man, this kid played at freaking Hamilton Heights, like out of nowhere. And now he's like the MVP and on the cusp potentially of winning a championship. It's pretty cool. So I do think it's interesting going back to the fact that all these kids talk about me. AJ talks about it all the time. Like, I just love SGA's game. I want my game to be like SGA, which is a really huge pivot. Like, not many kids now are talking about Curry like they used to. Like, it's the SGA's like kind of moved into that narrative. So I think that's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see if Halliburton now becomes like that type of archetype for some young guys too. So, but yeah, I would go OKC 4-2.
I said Thunder in 5. Chase, you went Thunder in 6.
I said OKC in 6.
Yeah.
I think Pacers are good enough to get a couple.
They're tough.
Yep.
I mean, they've got a great home crowd. I mean, they'll be tough to win up in Indiana. Yeah.
Well, anyhow, hey, we don't want to keep you up from dinner and your family and everything. So thanks for hopping on with us. And last thing, man, let's play in April.
Let's play in April. I've been saying it, guys.